Hey everyone, welcome. We're so happy you could join us for today's webinar, Full Spectrum Safety and Quality, Unlock Visibility with an eQMS. Before we get started, we just like to go over a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions that come up during the presentation, please feel free to submit the questions through the Q&A chat. We will have plenty of time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions. So next, I would like to introduce to you our guest, Katie Robertson. She's an IT staff consultant at the Chemours company, and Melissa Nolan. She's a quality senior manager also at the Chemours company. So welcome, Katie and Melissa. Thank you for joining us today. And I am Jennifer Bianchini. I'm a senior product marketing manager at ETQ. So just a quick look at our agenda for this afternoon. Here are some things that we'll cover. So first, we're going to touch on a few of the quality management challenges that can occur. Either it's a one-time thing or it's happening all the time within your organization, but in either case, it's critical to your company's bottom line. And then there is what you should take into consideration when you are assessing an eQMS. And then I'm excited for Katie and Melissa to share their safety and quality management journey. And then we'll just do a quick wrap up. So you'll have plenty of time. We'll have plenty of time at the end to answer your questions. So do not be shy. Put those questions in the chat because this time is for you, helping you to be a quality champion. So let's dive in, shall we? So first, I'd like to kick things off with a quick poll question. I would really love to get kind of like the pulse on what are some of your biggest challenges when it comes to managing quality related documents and the processes that are involved. So just a quick look at some of the options we have here. Is it A, finding the latest version of a document? We all know how frustrating that can be, trying to find the most up-to-date version of a document. Or is it ensuring access control and permission? So making sure folks have access to the information that they need to get the job done right the first time? Or is it tracking changes and maintaining compliance? You always want to be audit ready. And then knowing where to start with implementing a QMS. And you're looking for some advice on that and best practices. Or is it all of the above? Or you're just not sure, and that's okay because we are all here to learn. So let's just give it about another second or two and see what the results are. All right, let's see what we've got. Hopefully, everyone had a chance to get their responses in. Interesting. I was not expecting that today. Okay, so tracking changes and maintaining compliance. Very well. That's pretty cool. Just see real quick what came in second. All of the above. Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for indulging me on that. That was very insightful. So let's move ahead and start our webinar and get into this. So if we break this down and get into some of the challenges that we've seen some of our customers experience, and maybe you are going through some of them as well. These are challenges that are well understood in the world of quality management. So taking a look at the first one, manual processes. You might be using a paper-based system. You have information stored in a filing cabinet and it's not easily accessible to everyone who needs it. Or you might be using spreadsheets and SharePoint, and that as well can have its own unique set of challenges for sharing information across systems. Another challenge we've heard about from customers and prospects is information is siloed, and it's often very difficult to get that information to other business systems that people need for critical processes. So, for example, say you just received a shipment and unfortunately there is an issue with it, and you need to put this inventory on hold. So, how do you communicate that throughout your entire organization? And then there are times where you just don't have visibility into the quality trends within your organization, and neither does management. So, when it comes to reporting purposes, this can be very limiting. And then next, we have where there are these systems that we're all working with, and they can be inefficient. So, for example, we've heard from a prospective customer once express their frustration to us this way. And I quote, this is what they said: I just want to store the document. So, folks are dealing with a lot of processes that are inflexible, and that can be really frustrating. And then, unfortunately, there can be some situations where a document goes through multiple revisions. So, let's say your coworker Alex, they download a document and they go and make changes. And while they're working on that, you have another coworker, Logan, who might be, say in the Las Vegas office, and they're also making revisions to the same document. And then Alex and Logan will upload their revisions to SharePoint. So, how do you know which version is the most correct? Most up to date and correct. And you just don't. It's impossible to know. So there has to be a better way when it comes to quality and working through these processes. And we'll just help you find a way to get a game plan in place for getting an eQMS and work through some of these challenges. So to start, think about mapping out how your journey for a quality management system will look. And to do that, we recommend breaking it down into four doable steps. So it doesn't seem like this huge, daunting project. So the first step is starting with assessing your current situation. So take a look what you currently have in place for quality management. What does it look like right now across your organization? Are change management orders or training documents easily accessible to everyone, or are they stored away in that filing cabinet or SharePoint folder? And if they are, as a result, in some of these situations, you're probably seeing perhaps a high rate of errors, and people just aren't sure what to do when. And then let's think about automation. Do you know what processes or workflows can be automated to help you reduce these errors? So, what can you automate to help speed up the delivery of high quality products of your products to your customers? And then don't forget to take a look at what systems you currently have. So, if you have an ERP or a CRM, for example, how are you sharing information between these systems? So, really try to capture what quality management looks like right now. So, all of the steps, all of the systems that are being used by your organization. And then don't forget to think about what is working now that you want to continue building on. Okay, so the next step, now that you have a good understanding of how quality management processes are currently working, the next step will be to determine your needs. So, how can an EQMS help your organization improve quality? And this is where you are the quality advocate. You're going to be the champion, okay? So, you're going to get out that quality champion hat and you're going to put it on because you have the knowledge of what quality looks like within your organization. And you'll start to share it with key departments like production, operations, engineering, and so on. And while sharing this information, make sure it's a two-way conversation. Ask them how they manage quality to ensure your high quality products are getting produced and shipped to your customers. And then you're going to take this feedback and you're going to implement it into your blueprint for an EQMS. So ensure everyone understands and agrees how quality management needs to be a tangible strategic value to your organization. But again, remember, take it one step at a time. Okay, so for the third step, when it comes to evaluating your options, so you will want to um, figure out what are the priorities and what your challenges are going ahead and make sure you have a good understanding of those. So you can continue your quality planning and scope out your organizational EQMS goals and start putting your decision criteria checklist together. So, what does success look like? So, you'll think about those short term goals and immediate wins. So the must-haves that your organization must have. So is it data migration? Is it document control, CAPA management, or supplier quality? And it sounded like from our poll question earlier, it was to be audit ready. So you always want to be audit ready. So that is your must-have. So develop and prioritize your goals and your KPIs. And then when it comes to the QMS environment, you're going to want one that will evolve over time and respond to changes that are not only going to happen to your organization in the future, but the industry as well. So, can it easily scale across teams and locations, creating a centralized system of information? And now also is the time to identify what capabilities can be automated. So we had talked about in step one, what processes can you automate, and what software partner can help you achieve those easy wins and being able to automate those workflows. Okay, so let's round this up here to the final and fourth step in your journey, what you should be thinking about for your eQMS. So it's completing the investment. So you're going to get your quality manager hat back out, your quality champion hat, because you are going to go and deliver what superior quality looks like to the critical stakeholders within your organization. Because you've now found a quality management software partner that you would like to work with. And you need to put together a compelling real world ROI. So during this step, keep in mind you will be competing with other departments within your organization who are also looking for approval and funding for their projects. So you're going to need to show where the value is and the value of investing in an eQMS. So you'll have to show where you'll get the biggest return. And it's also really helpful to utilize a business case at this point because it helps to point out where the revenue growth is or your cost reduction assumptions. And also with a business case, this is where your approvers, like your CFO, really tend to dig in and look at the information and look at the data and look at the numbers. So make sure that you are really showing the hard savings costs. So those hard cost savings, make sure they have more of a weight than those soft cost savings. And then don't forget to include what would happen if your company did not make an investment in a QMS? So, what is the downside of that happening? What would that look like within your organization? Um, so, make sure you have those conversations with your CEO, your CFO, all your OOOs. And your VPs of engineering and operations, and et cetera. And really make sure to focus on the bottom line and the value that quality will bring to the table. All right, so now I'm very excited to turn it over to Katie and Melissa, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about their quality and safety management journey at Chemours Chemicals. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. So you can go to the next slide, Liz, please. Thank you. My name's Katie Robertson, and I'm an IT staff consultant with the Chemours Company. I started with Chemours as an employee in January 2019, but prior to that, I was a consultant for Chemours and its parent company, DuPont, and I've worked with ETQ Reliance for just over 12 years. I have certifications, so if you design in Reliance, you can take courses on how to do that. And so I've taken the basic, intermediate, and advanced courses, each of them twice actually. And then I also am basically the administrator, the developer for the system, the trainer for the system. I'm sort of the ETQ queen at Chemours in the IT world. And now I'll let Melissa introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Melissa Nolan. I'm the Quality Senior Manager at Chemours, and I started with DuPont in April of 2005, and I've been with Chemours since its inception. I've worked with Katie a lot on ETQ. My main implementations that I've been involved in is utilizing the audit management module, our document control, specification management, and then quality investigations, which also includes our SCARs.
Okay, just a little background on Chemours and who we are. We were founded in 2015 as a spinoff from DuPont. We are headquartered in Wilmington, Delaware, and we have three main businesses: titanium technology, also known as TT, advanced performance materials, also known as APM, and thermal and specialized solutions, also known as TSS. Um, but we do have a global presence. So we have 29 manufacturing sites globally in all regions, and we use ETQ Reliance at all of those sites, and we also have non-manufacturing sites that use the system as well. Next slide. Okay, so why ETQ? Why did we go with ETQ Reliance, and what was really the background on that? As I said, I did not join Chemours as an employee until 2019, but I was supporting ETQ Reliance at DuPont prior to the split and then during the split in 2015. So what happened is ETQ got like all the apps that DuPont had when they spun off. But Chemours is a much smaller company than DuPont was, so we had a much larger footprint, and we found that a lot of our businesses and EHS and quality spaces were doing the same things, but they were all using different apps to do this. So as you can see, we had a lot of legacy apps, and some of them were even unsupported or on unsupported versions. And we had about over 200 applications in that space that covered not only core functionality that like everybody did, but there was also site-specific processes covered as well. One of the main applications was a Lotus Notes application that included the ability to track, record audits, as well as the corrective actions from audits, record incidents, and really just record any kind of corrective action request. The problem is that each site had their own version of that application, and there wasn't an easy way to really roll it up. So we found that a lot of our sites were doing the same kind of core processes, but they just weren't all on the same box. We needed to get them into the same system, and then there were also a bunch of stuff that was not core that was very site specific. So the selection process, as I said, Chemours inherited ETQ, but the version we inherited in 2015 was an on-premise version. It was called version 12, or maybe it was called 2012 at the time. I can't remember the naming convention, but it was on-premise, which means that we were responsible for maintaining all the hardware and the server and all of that. So at the time, and the version we had was very, I would say it was a little over-engineered for what Chemours needed. So it really wasn't being used for those first 1 or 2 years immediately after the spinoff. The sites were still using the legacy applications. So then we knew we needed to get a new system that everybody was on and reduce our application footprint. And so ETQ actually met almost all of, if not all of our quality and EHS functional requirements. And it appeared to continue to grow in that space. Every year they would have a new module in that space that would be something that we would be interested in. So our selection was made for ETQ, but we needed a new version of it. The other great thing about ETQ is that it is configurable. So even if there is not an out-of-the-box module that met our needs, we could develop something ourselves. We could, create our own custom module or take a module that exists and tweak it and configure it to support our needs. So our goal was to simplify and standardize in the next version that was available at that time, which was 2017, and in a hosted environment, which means it's in the cloud, so that we are not responsible for maintaining the hardware and the server and all of that kind of maintenance. We're really just responsible for designing our own modules and keeping them up to date and promoting them up through the environments. But because we're hosted, we don't have to handle any of the hardware, which is great. We wanted to implement all of those core and common work processes that all the sites were doing, as well as, and then pick apart any site-specific processes we could. So as an example of a core process, everybody was doing incidents the same way because we do have a corporate standard on how we're supposed to report safety incidents and injuries. And so they were all doing it the same way. They were just doing it in different places. So that was one module that we knew we could take the ETQ incidents module, the off-the-shelf, out-of-the-box version, and tweak it and configure it to our needs and put all incident tracking in that module. We also wanted to reduce the resource demand that we had for EHS and quality tasks. So if you think about it, if we had 200 plus applications that, some of them needed to talk to each other, we had all kinds of integrations that were, Band-Aid integrations that were attached to make something work that was really outdated. So once we are moved to this one single system that everybody's using, that reduces a lot of that need for those extra Band-Aids and extra integrations. So we were able to make things more streamlined and simplified. Our other approach to this project was we were going to involve our sites and end users very early on. So you'll see in the next slide, when we get to the next slide, when we first went live with our 7 modules, we had site involvement with every single module design. And so every business was represented and every region in the world was represented to make sure that what we were building was not just something that was going to satisfy our corporate requirements, like our quality leadership or EHS leadership, but that the sites actually helped define those requirements so that they could accept and adopt the system. And that's the same model we've continued to use throughout building out our system since then. Next slide, please. So I know this slide is pretty busy, but this is really our journey from 2018 when we went live with that version 27. It was 2017 version at the time, but we went live with it in 2018 up through last year, which is like the latest changes we've made. So you can see in 2018 we went live with 7 modules. The actions module is actually a custom module, and the reason for that is because in Chemours, we all do action item tracking the same way, corrective action tracking the same way. Whether it comes from an audit or an incident or a task, it really doesn't matter. It's the same form and the same fields that get filled in and the same workflow. And so we wanted one place that we could store all of those action items from those parent processes. And the Kappa configuration in ETQ was a little too burdensome for our users, so we built a custom module for that. But all of the other modules are standard out of the box: audits management, change management for MOCs, document control, incident tracking, which we use for our safety incidents and injury illness reporting. Quality investigation, that is the Kappa module, but the corrective action module. We just rebranded it, we renamed it, and that actually integrates directly with Salesforce. So if we have a customer that puts a complaint into Salesforce, we can push that case down to ETQ so we can internally investigate the case and issue action items. And then once we complete and verify those actions, the case gets pushed back up to Salesforce, and it's resolved at that point in both systems. So there's an integration there between the 2 systems. And then finally, task management. So what we did is we looked at our footprint, again, those 200 plus applications, and we pulled out the core processes. So we all do incidents the same. We all do document control the same. We all do audits pretty much the same. We have 2 types, either observational audits or compliance audits. We all do action tracking the same. And we do quality investigations the same. For everything else, we've sort of pushed it into the task management module. If for anything else that's like, okay, you need to do a quick walkthrough of, I don't know, you need to document that somebody watched a security video. That could be something that could be tracked in task management. And so if it's so site specific that like not all sites do it or not all sites do it the same way, it can still be tracked in Reliance, but in this task management module is what we use for that. You can see so initially our initial implementation was we purchased what's called like an EHS suite with one quality module. We hadn't used our quality module yet. We'll get to that in a little bit. Even though quality investigations is listed there, that's the corrective action module. So we had a lot of new modules for EHS initially. And then in 2019, you can see we did go live with a couple modules, meetings management and permit control, which are standard out of the box. And we developed a module called Reliance Improvements, because we figured out pretty quickly that as soon as we went live, we would have the opportunity to make changes and optimizations, and we needed a way to track that. And so the Reliance Improvements module is used for users to be able to go in and request changes to the system, and we track that change through the whole change management process, as well as the testing of that change. We also connected to Power BI in 2019, which really opened up, now we have a transparent system that everybody can see and everybody can see the data. So you can see in 2020, then there was a lot more module development in 2020 and 2021 after that. In 2020, that's when we traded out our one quality module. We originally had non-conformance materials, but we traded it out and purchased, we basically just traded on our license key for the product specification management module, which we rebranded as just specification management. So that was the big quality module in 2021 that we went live with two of our businesses. You can see also on the bottom the change request number. Initially, we had 165 change requests, right? Because we just stood up 7 modules. So there was lots of room for improvement to add more views to the system or add new reminders and notifications or whatever. So, but as we have continued to use the system, those change requests have dropped off up until last year when we launched a new module and had some additional change requests. So what's next for us in 2025? In this year, well, the last thing I want to mention is in 2024, we went live with our SCAR form and workflow. So we always had this available, but we turned it on and enabled it in 2024 to track supplier corrective action requests. Because previously, up until that point, we were using a couple different systems for this. Some sites were using like an Excel spreadsheet to track scars, and some were using a system called Aravo that we were getting out of. So we needed one single place to track the scars as well as action items that come out of those. And so that was a demand signal from our procurement team. So we went live with that last year, and that connects and integrates to our SEP system so that when we are issuing a SCAR, we are issuing it to a vendor from our approved vendor list from our ERP system. So this year, what we're working on is we're continuing to improve our modules, of course, but we need to get our third business, our titanium technologies business, online with specification management. So we'll be bringing them online in that module and loading all their specs in there. In the EHS world, we have some enhanced reporting in Power BI because we have a lot of reports all over the place, and we really want like one report to rule them all in Power BI. So we've worked for the last 6 months to get input from all the different stakeholders to get one report that pulls data from ETQ. Melissa and I are working on an FMEA module, failure modes effects analysis, and we're building that out. And then we've had some demand signals from our Power Apps team, Microsoft Power Apps, where they have an opportunity to maybe they conduct like a behavior-based engagement, and they want to just do that in a Power App because anybody in the company can do that. You don't need ETQ access necessarily. But if they want to issue an action item from that, we want action items in our actions module. So we're working on an integration to push actions to that module. We'll be able to talk about lessons learned a little later as well, but the main lessons that we learned, and I've already mentioned this, is that you want to really work with the sites early on and make sure that they're involved early on so that they are your power users and they feel empowered to not only adopt the module, but train other users on how to use it. And everybody's on board that, this is the system of record. This is the system we are using for this. We also when we first went live with our 7 modules, we did work with a consulting firm, AECOM, to help us with the project just because it was a massive project, took a lot of planning, a lot of different work streams. And so they helped us manage that project for that full, took about a year from, planning to implementation and finalization. And I think at this point, Melissa will take over. So that's sort of the IT story. At this point, Melissa will take over on our next slide to give you the quality specific journey for our company.
Thank you. So really our quality journey within Chemours really shifted in around 2019 and 2020 when we decided to shift from individual site ISO 9001 certificates to a multi-site ISO 9001 certificate. One of the requirements of the multi-site certification is that you have a centralized location with oversight of many of the different aspects, such as your audit program, management reviews, corrective actions, and customer complaints. And really, ETQ was integral to do this because we had a software that allowed us multiple sites to have access to it and for all of those to roll up into the centralized location. One of the items that we've really worked on is integration of the QMS requirements within our systems. So what we did was we looked at really what we were getting external audit findings from our certification body for, and how do we integrate them so that we wouldn't have them spread from one site to the next. For our corrective actions, we really ensured that a root cause analysis was required within the system, and also that our effectiveness checks are being required for corrective actions. We also implemented changes so that if we deemed something was not effective, that we couldn't just deem it was not effective and move on, that other actions that needed to be done so that we didn't just leave a nonconformance out there that we found our solution was ineffective. Within our audits module, we really standardize our workflow and incorporating developing that action plan from each finding within the audit module itself. We've integrated layered process audits, and also we added additional questions within the audit module and also the quality investigation module to make sure that we were handling risk and opportunities and changes to the QMS that were needed out of audit action items and also quality investigations. One of the key items around multi-site certification is that you're leveraging your learnings not just through the site, but also across the organization. And ETQ has really helped us with this. Basically, our audit findings can be easily compiled and shared across the organization. With implementing the SCAR system, not only with individual sites having it, but having a global SCAR system, we really have increased and improved our visibility of our SCARs, which has helped our sites and also our procurement organization. From a headquarter standpoint, we try to have headquarter procedures rather than sites having their own individual procedure. So it decreases on how many documentations that need to be maintained for those key processes. And specifically around specifications, this has been a major tool that we have used to improve our visibility. We have visibility now of our product lines rather than the individual sites. So we can compare specifications for products that are made the same from one site to the next. Also, a key item that we've worked on is our sales specifications. They used to be spread out over many different systems, such as shared drives, SharePoint sites, or even on people's own computers. Now we have a centralized location with people have access to, and also we've implemented a review cycle for them so that we are not just sending out old sales specifications to our customers. And we've standardized that review cycle, and we have roles and responsibilities on who should be reviewing them and who has the final approval. I think that's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie and Melissa, for sharing. You had some great nuggets of information in there. I think everyone got some really great tips. So before we get to the Q&A part of our webinar, if you would just bear with me one moment, I'd like to share a little bit more with you about ETQ. So as I'm sure you are aware, there are a lot of phases in your eQMS journey, but no matter where you are at ETQ, we are ready to help you. So we have a comprehensive purpose-built eQMS where it helps you to reduce your costs, streamline your operations, and build compliance into your processes. And that results in improved efficiency and time to market. And also building sustainability and improving your bottom line results. We also offer a wide range of professional services, including managed services, to help you meet your needs, regardless as wherever you are in your quality journey. So they can help you at any stage. And as you can see, if when looking at the slide with ETQ, you are in good company. We have served hundreds of customers and from all shapes and sizes across many industries, and we take what we've learned from working with customers in those different industries and apply best practices to be able to provide a unique value to all of our customers. And for over 30 years, we have empowered quality champions like you to use quality management as a catalyst for your business success. And we also aim to be a trusted advisor to our customers, and we'd really love to have the opportunity to share our expertise with you. And just a quick shout out, we're a part of Hexagon. It's a global leader in sensor, software, and autonomous manufacturing solutions. All right, so thanks so much for letting me share a little bit more with you about ETQ. And we are now reached the part of our webinar for the Q&A. So let's see what questions have come through the chat. Are you ready, Katie and Melissa?
Ready.
All right, let's see. Okay, let me take a look here. Okay, this is a good question. Either for either one of you, Katie or Melissa. Simon had asked, I understand all of this requires resources. How did you convince top management to invest into the system?
I'll take a stab at it, and then if Melissa wants to chime in. I wasn't really involved with those discussions because I wasn't hired as an employee yet, but I know that we had to have something because, again, we had those 200 plus applications. That was a huge footprint and costing money anyway. So we went through an applications rationalization process with the idea that, okay, we have to get rid of the excess stuff, the stuff that we're duplicating, right? If this system does A and this system does A, we got to make a cut somewhere. And we already evaluated ETQ when we were part of DuPont and went through, looking at multiple vendors, and ETQ was selected for a lot of the same reasons that we wanted that system. The other driver really was there was some applications that weren't supported anymore, so we couldn't stay on them. It was going away. There was no option. And I think the third driver really is, we have corporate standards that we have to comply with, as like for incident tracking. So we need a corporate system that everybody can access in their local language. That's just one of our standards. So we needed a system to do that anyway. But as far as like, how did we convince them to spend the money? I wasn't actually there for those details. Melissa, did you have anything else there?
Yeah, no, I really wasn't in position either, but I think one of the main thing is, kind of that consolidation, and in going to the multi-site certification, it really is value added to it. It's money savings because all of the sites were getting audited on an annual basis, and now we have it that about 33% of our sites are audited annually, and we get audited at headquarters. So there is really as cost savings with going to the multi-site, and not having a centralized system that we could have oversight wouldn't have been acceptable. We wouldn't have been able to get that multi-site cert without it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Katie, Melissa. That's really great answers. And I think if I could add to it as well, I think that's where it's helpful, where I was talking more at the beginning of the presentation of building out an ROI for your quality management system, and then having that business case. So when you go to have those conversations to top management to make the investment, you have the numbers and you have the data right there. So it's pretty hard to say no when you got the hard data there to get them to convince and improve the funding. Okay, so let's see what else we have come through. And thank you for the question, Simon. Let's see. We have a question here from Alex. Can you share about the learning curve for administrator and general users adapting to use ETQ? I think that's a question for you, Katie and Melissa. And then Alex has a second question, which I'll answer real fast. As I noticed that there is an ETQ Academy, and is that reserved for current customers only? Yes. When you're a customer, you have access to ETQ Academy. So I'll let you, Katie, Melissa, talk about the learning curve for the admin and general users adapting to using ETQ.
So for I'll talk about general users first. We have a train the trainer model. So all of our sites are power users. They have the ability, they are like a location administrator where they have abilities beyond just the general end user. And so they are the main trainers for new users that come on board. So when we first went live, we had those folks identified at the site. That was usually 2 or 3 folks. So they helped us deliver training. So when we first went live, we had all kinds of training happening, webinars, sometimes in person with those people delivering in-person training at the site. But any system is going to require new training. So we had recorded videos, we did live training, we did webinar training. And then as we've used the system, it's sort of tapered off, because the beauty of Reliance, one of the beauties in my book is that every module looks and feels the same. So the form and the questions you answer on the form are different. The workflow phases are different, but the form looks like this. The workflow's at the top, the sections are on the left, like all of that trickles down to any module that you're using. So once you've learned one or two, I feel like it's pretty easy to adopt a new module if you know what that process is, whether it's change management or incident reporting. As far as the administrator training, I was already had that training when I joined the company, but we have looked into like onboarding other folks, and on my team right now, I need a backup. And so we've got somebody coming on board and taking the classes in ETQ Academy, and then I'm supplementing with them as well. Now, they already have an IT background. They don't really have a programming background, but for me, when I did it, I sort of learned as I went, right? I learned like some Python coding as I developed new modules or fixed existing modules. And for SQL training, I just took like free, online courses to learn a little SQL. And you don't necessarily need SQL, but the views are based off of that, so it's helpful if you know that. So the administrator training, you can certainly take that in ETQ Academy, and then a lot of it is on the job understanding.
Yeah, I will just say for the general user training too, it's important that if you're are making a change or making something new, incorporating those key users from the beginning as you're making that change and what it looks like, rather than just dropping it in their lap, so that you do want to make sure that you're incorporating their input so that they're getting a benefit from it as well.
I think I have a follow-up question to that, Katie, Melissa. So how did you work on getting buy-in from the users at your sites with rolling out new software? Like, did you experience any pushback? And if you did, how did you manage that and work on buy-in?
Yeah, so I'll answer that one. Yes, we do get pushback. I think, as we've learned, as I came into the role, we had a non-conformance that I wanted to answer a certain way, and we got pushback that we didn't want. Well, a year and a half later, they came back and said, "Hey, can we do it this way?" And we were like, "Yeah, that was the original way we wanted to implement the change." So it's really just about making sure that you communicate about the change. A lot of the changes now that we make come from the users, that they'll see like, hey, we had this non-conformance, so we had this issue pop up. Can we make this change, or how do couldn't we incorporate it so we get better visibility within ETQ? To make it. So I think a lot of the changes now really come from a quality standpoint, come from our users, and also come from non-conformances that we get through internal and external auditing.
Oh, it's great to hear your users giving you great feedback like that. So it's easier to use for everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so we have a question here from Janet. So Janet is wondering about when it came to transferring earlier data, pre-existing data or documentation from the 200 plus apps, could ETQ modules easily read and integrate that entirely or automatically, or was there a little bit of data entry involved or some type of copying pasting required? So I think what Jan is trying to get out, how much of it was automatically integrated, and then if there was any manual work, was there a lot of manual work, or what type of manual work were you looking at?
Okay, I'll answer that. So we migrated data into the modules using the import system. So you can import data, you can import records into the modules. And like in a module like document control, where you have the record and all the metadata and also an attached file, you can import the attachments as well. So we, in the beginning, when we didn't go live with all 7 modules at the same time. It was a phased approach. So let's say, okay, next month we're going live with document control. For the 3 or 4 months leading up to that, we would be working with the sites to get their documents in an Excel template. And when I say their documents, I mean like all that metadata. What's the document title, the number, and in some cases we could export that from the previous system and just remap it into that Excel file so we could import it in. we didn't really have any manual creation. Most of our records were created that way. I will say that in some cases we had a cutoff where we identified, okay, from this day forward, like for incident tracking, we knew that in starting in 2018, all incident records would be entered into Reliance, and any prior records were in our old system, and we kind of cut that off and archived that old system. So if we need to go look at prior records from like 2015 to 2018, we use that archive to look at them. But going forward, 2018 is our new system of record at that point.
Great. Thank you, Katie. So here's a safety question. So when you first were looking at how you would go through the process of defining safety, like what did that process look like for you, and what was important about defining the value of safety throughout Chemours company?
Well, our safety has always been one of our core values. It's included on our company website as one of our core values. So our goal is always to, our goal is always to have zero incidents if possible. But we want to make sure that we're committed to protecting our people, our employees, our community, the environment, and that everybody feels safe at work and can go home safely. So it's always been part of our core value system, and we want all of our employees and contractors to feel empowered to be able to report something. So we use the incident module not just to report incidents, but report near misses and communicate those as well, so that everybody's aware of a near miss. And we also have a leverage learning system in that module, so that once a month or once a quarter, we have a corporate team that looks at an incident that occurred at a site and says, hey, this could happen at your site, and we send it out using ETQ to send it out, where they answer questions. If this did happen at my site, how would I handle it? How would I react to it? What would be the steps we would take? And that's called a virtual incident. So we're really using the system not just to record stuff that actually happened, but stuff that never has happened but could happen.
Oh, that's great. And I love that, making sure that everyone goes home safe. I like that. That's really smart. I like that. Okay, so I think we have one more question left. And then I think we will be reaching the end here unless any more come through. So I think this is one, again, is about kind of expanding, looks more about the lessons you've learned. So you talked a little bit about, making sure that you start early on in the process with the users at the different sites. Is there anything else? Maybe if we look at when it comes to evaluating an eQMS, do you have any advice out there for someone who is currently out there shopping around and talking to vendors for a quality management system? What advice do you have for them?
I would say, and Melissa and I talked about this. I would say start small, and I think you touched on that too, Jennifer. Like, take it in small chunks and not just the steps, those chunks, but also what you're trying to implement. So, I mean, 7 modules was ambitious. I think it was fine. I wouldn't ever go above 7 at once, just because that was a lot to throw at our users initially. 3 or 4 might be a better number. Like, start with audits and incidents first, and well, audits and incidents in Kappa. I think you need Kappa. So start small with just a few modules initially, and then you can always build out your footprint from there. Another recommendation that I would make for any system, whether you're going with ETQ or any solution for any process, really, is don't let the system define the process, right? Don't try to build the system according to like make sure you have your process defined first. You really need that. You need to know, what questions do you want to ask? What are the steps of your workflow? What kind of reports and KPIs are you trying to get out of it? You need to define that first, almost as if you're system agnostic, and then you can go and build your system, because then you have really good requirements.
That's really solid advice. Thank you, Katie. Okay. It looks like we have one more question slip in here from Terrell. So Terrell's wondering about when it came to the transition of going to ETQ, was there any pushback to it and any hiccups along the way with the transition?
Melissa, do you want to take that?
Sure. So I think there's always going to be pushback when you go to a new system. I think one of the main things that we did was it was we we kind of aligned and said, these are what the requirements that you have to use the system for. And then we gave leeway on certain things. So for example, we must utilize our system for audit management. All audits must go into ETQ. But how the site necessarily does opportunities for improvements or tracking that, they have some leeway on that. So I think it's important that, you get their buy-in on certain things, and then be very transparent on what the true requirement that they have to utilize and what they have to do, and then what they have some leeway on. But I think you'll get resistance. But for me, once you communicate to everyone on the benefit, then I think it's kind of clear. I'll give one example that we used when we originally started using the audits. We had each site individually go in and post their own audits. And we kind of found that was not working effectively to have that centralized overview of the audit program. So we worked out on a process where basically now we put in audit plans for each site. So basically now they have one central audit plan for the site rather than, say, having 10 audits that they have to search for. We gave them a way that basically to standardize how they put them in so that it's not all over the place.
And I'll just add that now that we're 7 years, 8 years in, the resistance has tapered off, right? I think, in fact, it's sort of funny because sometimes the people that complained 7 years ago, 6 years ago, they now ask, "Hey, can I put this in ETQ now? It makes sense that it goes there because everything else is there." And it's been this sort of cultural shift that they've accepted that this is our central management system, and they've embraced it to the point where they're asking us to build new stuff in there or include new processes in the system, which is great.
Oh, that's great to hear. I would assume it'd be like when you go to implement any new system, you're going to get some type of pushback.
Of course. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Katie and Melissa. I appreciate you sharing your stories with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining our webinar. I hope that you all have a great rest of your day. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at ETQ or reach out to Katie or Melissa. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.